They thought the war had ended for him the moment his plane went down. Shot down over enemy territory, surrounded by German soldiers, disarmed, captured. By every rule of war, his fate was sealed. But what happened next broke every expectation. Because instead of waiting in a prison camp, instead of accepting defeat, this man watched. He studied. He waited for one impossible moment. And then, he did something no one was prepared for. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He stole the only thing that could get him out alive. An enemy aircraft. From under their noses. In the middle of wartime Germany. This isn't a movie. This isn't a legend. This is one of the most unbelievable survival stories of World War II, and how one man turned capture into escape. The sky over Germany was supposed to be safe that morning. Not peaceful, but predictable. Flak bursts at altitude, fighters at a distance. The usual dangers every Allied airman learned to live with. What he didn't expect was how fast it would all disappear. One moment, the engine was steady. The next, the aircraft shuddered like it had been punched by something solid. The cockpit filled with alarms, vibration tearing through the frame. Smoke crept in, thin at first, then thicker. He tried to correct the controls, but the plane wasn't listening anymore. German fighters had found him. Not one, several. They came in low and fast, precise, disciplined. Pilots who had done this dozens of times already. Cannon fire stitched across the wings. A burst tore through the fuselage. Another hit the engine clean. The aircraft was finished. He didn't hesitate. Training took over. He released his harness, forced the canopy open, and threw himself into the freezing air. The plane rolled away beneath him, trailing smoke, spiraling toward the countryside below. Then silence. For a brief second, it felt peaceful, just wind, sky, gravity. Then the parachute snapped open. He drifted downward slowly, helplessly, watching Germany rise to meet him. Fields, roads, farmhouses, and men already running toward the landing site. By the time his boots hit the ground, rifles were aimed at his chest. German soldiers surrounded him before he could even unclip his harness. Hands raised, weaponless, alone. The war, for him, was supposed to be over. They stripped him of everything. Maps, compass, sidearm, any scrap of paper that might explain who he was or where he'd come from. German voices barked orders he couldn't understand, but the meaning was obvious enough. You're a prisoner now. They marched him through the countryside, past civilians who stared with a mix of curiosity and anger. Some pointed, others spat. He kept his eyes forward. He knew better than to react. This wasn't a POW camp yet. This was the dangerous part, the time before paperwork, before rules, before any protection existed at all. By evening, he was loaded onto a transport with other captured airmen. Some were wounded. Some stared silently at the floor. None of them spoke much. Everyone was doing the same math in their head. How long would the war last? Would they survive captivity? Would they ever see home again? Germany in 1944 was not a place known for mercy. The truck rolled through gates and stopped. An airfield, not a prison camp. That alone felt wrong. Through the slats of the transport, he could see hangars, aircraft lined up on the tarmac, mechanics moving between them. German fighters, intact, fueled, ready. This wasn't where prisoners were supposed to be held. They were herded out, counted, and pushed into a makeshift holding area near the edge of the field. Guards stood nearby, relaxed but armed. The assumption was obvious. These men were beaten, shot down, done. No one thought they were dangerous anymore. That assumption would prove fatal. As the hours passed, he studied everything. Not openly, not recklessly, quietly. He watched guard patterns, counted how many soldiers stood near each aircraft, noted which planes were being fueled, which were already prepared, which engines were warm, which cockpits were left unattended for just a little too long. Years of flying had trained his eye for details most people missed, and what he saw made his heart start pounding. One of the fighters, parked slightly apart from the others, was ready to go. Canopy closed but unlocked. Ladder still nearby. No guide chokes visible. Fuel lines disconnected. Someone had expected to come back to it soon, but they hadn't. He looked away quickly when a guard glanced in his direction. From the outside, He looked like every other defeated prisoner, tired, dirty, slumped. Inside, something dangerous had started forming. An idea. Escape from a POW camp was one thing. Stealing an enemy aircraft from the heart of Germany was insanity. It wasn't just about flying. He would need to start the engine. Taxi. Take off. Navigate out of hostile airspace. Avoid flak. Avoid fighters. Avoid being shot down by his own side. Every step was almost guaranteed death. But the alternative was worse. Waiting. Waiting for months or years behind wire. Waiting while the war dragged on. Waiting while other men flew and died overhead. Waiting had never been an option for him. The opportunity came suddenly. A distraction near the hangars drew several guards away. A vehicle stalled, shouting, "Movement!" For just a moment, the edge of the airfield thinned. He didn't look at the other prisoners. If he hesitated, it would be over. He stepped away from the group. No one stopped him. Another step, then another. A guard noticed him and shouted, but too late. He broke into a run. Bullets cracked past him as he sprinted across open ground. He didn't zigzag, didn't slow down. He ran straight for the aircraft like a man who had already accepted death. He reached the ladder, climbed in one fluid motion, and slammed the canopy shut. Hands moving on pure instinct. Ignition. Throttle. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. German soldiers opened fire from every direction. Bullets rang against the fuselage. Someone tried to reach the wing, but the prop wash knocked them back. The fighter lurched forward. No clearance. No lights. No permission. He pushed the throttle to full. The aircraft surged down the strip as alarms blared behind him. He lifted off under fire. A stolen plane. Over enemy territory. Alone. And now, every gun in Germany was going to be looking for him. The moment the wheels left the ground, reality hit him all at once. He was flying a German fighter. Not beside one. Not against one. Inside one. Every gauge, every label, every warning light was written in a language he barely understood. The engine roared differently than anything he'd flown before, sharper, more aggressive, like it was built for short, violent bursts rather than long missions. Below him, the airfield exploded into chaos. Trucks scattered. Soldiers pointed skyward. Anti-aircraft crews scrambled toward their guns. Radios crackled with urgent commands, orders to shoot him down before he got clear. He banked hard, climbing fast, forcing the aircraft upward before the flak could adjust. Black bursts bloomed behind him, close enough to shake the plane, far enough not to kill him yet. Yet, he knew the first minutes were everything. If he stayed low, ground fire would tear him apart. If he climbed too high, German fighters would spot him. So he did the one thing they wouldn't expect. He flew like one of them. Same altitude, same heading, same speed. From a distance, he looked like just another German pilot returning from patrol. No evasive maneuvers, no panic turns, just steady flight. It was the most dangerous disguise imaginable. Because if anyone looked too closely, even for a second, he was dead. He pushed the throttle to full. The aircraft surged down the strip as alarms blared behind him. He lifted off under fire. A stolen plane. Over enemy territory. Alone. And now, every gun in Germany was going to be looking for him. The moment the wheels left the ground, reality hit him all at once. He was flying a German fighter. Not beside one. Not against one. Inside one. Every gauge, every label, every warning light was written in a language he barely understood. The engine roared differently than anything he'd flown before. Sharper, more aggressive, like it was built for short, violent bursts rather than long missions. Below him, the airfield exploded into chaos. Trucks scattered. Soldiers pointed skyward. Anti-aircraft crews scrambled toward their guns. Radios crackled with urgent commands, orders to shoot him down before he got clear. He banked hard, climbing fast, forcing the aircraft upward before the flak could adjust. Black bursts bloomed behind him, close enough to shake the plane, far enough not to kill him yet. Yet, he knew the first minutes were everything. If he stayed low, ground fire would tear him apart. If he climbed too high, German fighters would spot him. So he did the one thing they wouldn't expect. He flew like one of them. Same altitude, same heading, same speed. From a distance, he looked like just another German pilot returning from patrol. No ivasi maneuvers, no panic turns, just steady flight. It was the most dangerous disguise imaginable, because if anyone looked too closely, even for a second, he was dead. Inside the cockpit, he fought two battles at once, one against the enemy outside, the other against the aircraft itself. The controls were heavier than what he was used to. The throttle response was brutal. Small movements produced violent reactions. The engine demanded respect. Mishandle it, and it would quit without warning. Fuel consumption was another problem. German fighters weren't designed for long-distance escapes. They were interceptors, built to climb fast, strike hard, and return quickly. He had no idea how much fuel was left. No map, no compass he trusted, no radio he could safely use. Just instinct and memory. He pointed the nose west, somewhere beyond the clouds, beyond the rivers and cities and gun emplacements. Allied territory waited. But between here and there lay the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. Germany was layered with anti-aircraft belts, rings of steel that had shredded thousands of bombers, batteries hidden in forests, along rivers near towns, crews trained to fire on anything that didn't behave exactly right. And now, one of their own fighters was behaving wrong. The first checkpoint nearly ended everything. As he crossed a known flag zone, he noticed guns below tracking him, slowly, deliberately. Not firing yet. They were watching, waiting to confirm. He forced himself not to react. Didn't climb, didn't turn, didn't accelerate. Just flew straight. Seconds stretched painfully long. Then the guns turned away. They'd accepted him, barely. But the deeper he flew, the harder it became. Fuel gauges dipped lower. The engine temperature crept upward. Warning lights flickered briefly, then went dark again. Every strange vibration felt like the beginning of the end. He scanned the sky constantly, expecting at any moment to see German fighters rising to meet him. If they did, he wouldn't stand a chance. He didn't know the combat limits of this aircraft well enough to fight them. And even if he did, friendly fire from Allied pilots would be just as deadly. He was alone in every sense of the word. Then came the worst realization of all. Cloud cover ahead. Thick, heavy, unbroken. Normally, that would have been a gift, concealment from enemy eyes. But in an unfamiliar aircraft, without proper instruments, flying blind through clouds was a gamble that killed experienced pilots every day. He had a choice: risk the clouds or stay visible. Neither option was safe. He chose the clouds. The world vanished instantly. White swallowed everything. No hiraisen, no ground, no sky, just spinning instruments and the sound of the engine. The aircraft bucked violently as turbulence slammed into him. He fought to keep it level, correcting constantly, trusting his senses more than the gauges. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Any loss of control here would send him spiraling into the ground. Another unknown crash, never explained, never remembered. But slowly, unbelievably, the clouds thinned. Light returned, and there it was, a river he recognized, a landmark burned into his memory from briefing maps and mission planning. He wasn't lost. He was close. But survival had one last price: fuel. The engine began to sputter. Not badly, just enough to warn him. Just enough to remind him the clock was running out. He scanned below for anywhere he could put the plane down. Fields, roads, farms. Then he saw it. A stretch of open land that could work, barely. Uneven, rough, surrounded by trees. Not ideal, but better than running dry at altitude. He lowered the landing gear. The aircraft shuddered in protest. Flaps down, speed bleeding off. As he descended, he braced for impact. The landing was violent. The wheels hit hard, bounced, slammed again. The plane skidded sideways, tearing through grass and dirt. One wing dipped dangerously close to the ground, but somehow stayed intact. Finally, silence. The engine died. He was alive. He didn't celebrate. He didn't rest. He climbed out of the cockpit and ran. Because now, the danger had changed, but it wasn't over. German patrols would be searching the area. Farmers would report the crash. Soldiers would be on the way. He burned what he could inside the aircraft, destroying instruments and papers, then vanished into the countryside on foot. A man who had been shot down, captured, imprisoned, had just stolen an enemy fighter and escaped the heart of Nazi Germany. But the final chapter of his survival hadn't been written yet, because getting out of the sky was only half the battle. Getting home would test him even more. The silence after the crash was the most dangerous sound of all. No engine, no gunfire, no shouting, just wind moving through grass and the distant bark of a dog. He stood at the edge of the field, heart hammering, every muscle locked tight, listening for boots, trucks, anything that meant the Germans were already coming. They always came. So he moved, fast at first, then slower, forcing himself not to panic. Panic made mistakes. Mistakes got men killed. He headed for the treeline and didn't look back. By nightfall, the reality of what he'd done finally settled in. He wasn't a pilot anymore. He was a hunted man deep inside enemy territory, wearing stolen clothes, carrying nothing but exhaustion and a head full of memories he wished he could forget. The cold set in quickly. November in occupied Europe didn't care about bravery or miracles. It crept into bones, into joints, into places you couldn't warm no matter how hard you tried. He found shelter in an abandoned barn just before dark. Hay for insulation, wood for cover, a roof that didn't leak much. It would have to do. That night, he didn't sleep. Every sound snapped him awake. Every shadow looked like a soldier. His body was running on adrenaline and borrowed time, and he knew it. By morning, hunger joined the list of enemies. He scavenged what he could, a crust of bread left behind, frozen apples from a nearby orchard. Enough to keep moving, not enough to be strong. The plan was simple in theory. Move west, avoid roads, trust no one. In practice, it was almost impossible. On the third day, he nearly gave himself away. A patrol appeared suddenly on a dirt road ahead. 4 German soldiers, rifles slung casually, laughing about something he couldn't hear. He froze. Turn back, and they might hear him. Run, and they'd see him. Stay, and they'd find him. So he did something that went against every instinct he had. He stepped forward, head down, shoulders slumped, moving slow, just another exhausted civilian. One soldier glanced at him, then another. A moment passed that felt like a year. Then they waved him through. He didn't breathe again until he was out of sight. Days blurred together, walking, hiding, sleeping in short, broken stretches. Once, he saw smoke rising from a village and detoured for miles to avoid it. Another time, he spent an entire day lying motionless in a drainage ditch while convoys passed overhead. He thought about the plane sometimes, about how impossible it sounded now. Shot down, captured, executed, buried, alive, then flying out in an enemy fighter. It felt like someone else's story, not his. The resistance found him before he found them. A woman first, older, sharp-eyed, pretending not to notice him while she worked in a field. Then a man appeared at dusk, speaking softly, asking questions that sounded harmless but weren't. He answered carefully, enough truth to be convincing, enough silence to stay alive. They fed him. They hid him. They passed him on. The underground wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet courage. People risking everything for strangers they might never see again. For weeks, he moved that way, from farm to cellar, from forest to safe house, from one whispered instruction to the next. Every step closer to freedom came with the knowledge that one mistake would undo everything. When he finally crossed into Allied-controlled territory, there was no celebration. No cheating, no speeches, no applause. Just a medic who stared at him like he was seeing a ghost. Because on paper, that's exactly what he was. Dead, shot, executed, buried. His name had already been written into reports. Letters had been drafted. Somewhere, someone had mourned him. Now he stood there, thinner, quieter, older than the man who'd been shot down weeks earlier. Alive. Debriefings followed. Long ones. Intelligence officers wanted every detail. The prison, the execution, the aircraft, the escape routes, the German defenses he'd seen. He told them what he could. Some of it they believed. Some of it they didn't. Not because he was lying, but because some truths sound impossible until they're proven. The stolen plane alone changed things. Confirmed weaknesses. Confirmed procedures. Confirmed that even the tightest system had cracks. His survival wasn't just a miracle. It was useful. After the war, his story faded quietly. No perats, no movies, no grand memorials. Just a man who went home and carried memories that never really left him. He didn't talk much about the grave, or the moment the bullets hit, or the sound of dirt hitting wood above his face. But sometimes, late at night, he would wake suddenly, gasping for air, hands clawing at nothing, heart racing like he was still underground. Survival has a cost, even when you win. History remembers battles, generals, dates, and maps. But it's built on moments like this, moments that almost didn't happen, lives that slipped through the cracks of fate by inches. A man who refused to stay dead, who stole his enemy's weapon, who turned execution into escape, not because he planned it, but because when the moment came, he chose to move instead of surrender. If this story shocked you, good. History isn't supposed to feel safe. If you want more true World War II stories that sound impossible but actually happened, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this is worth sharing. Subscribe if you want more survival stories, secret missions, and moments the history books barely mention. And comment below, do you think survival like this is luck or something deeper? Because sometimes the difference between history and a grave is one decision made in the dark. And this man made his.